Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Trainman, and welcome back to episode 196 of the Zombie Train. This one entitled The Battle of Sault Ste. Marie. I had that pronunciation corrected by a Michiganer? Michiganer? Whatever. Somebody from Michigan? Anyways, I was corrected, so that's what that is. And I've been saying it horribly wrong, and I'm an idiot. But aside from the obvious, today we're working to get rid of things that are decidedly not obvious, namely invisible signals. This is a problem that cropped up moving the route from 12 into Tain. You could see them on the map, but you couldn't see them in the world on the map. You know, you could see them on the overview, but there were no actual signals or even actual invisible signals to correspond with these signals. And I know that's kind of a tough sell and a tough explanation, but that's kind of what I was looking at, going, what on earth is going on here? And then I realized that, of course, I just had to go in and delete those sections of track. Unfortunately, the signals like to appear on top of other things, for example, speed signs, signals, switch stands. And that led to me having to do things multiple times, or moving things around first and then doing that. I almost got all of them, but there are actual leftovers on the map still after 2 hours of getting rid of them. Also, the water still looks like coolant. That's something I need to fix. But anyways, let's get on to the important thing today, the main subject, the Battle of Sault Ste. Marie. This was, like I've said, very early on in the Zombie Train Incorporated. It was one of the first, if not the first, major offensive that we made. It was the farthest west offensive at the time of it, aside from things done in conjunction with the U.S. military, which was pretty much all pre-Zombie Train Incorporated anyway, so it doesn't matter. But the Battle of Sault Ste. Marie is not something I actually had a hand in, or not a direct hand in. I did work sort of outside of everything, but for the most part, I wasn't here. I was not in Sault Ste. Marie at all. I was in fact in Toronto at this time, in the Toronto Rail Lands, doing a little bit of logistics and coordinating. One of the first problems, of course, was getting our contingent there, and we had, well, in the way of shipping, in the way of ships, our flagship on the Great Lakes was something you might call woefully small. It was the U.S. brig Niagara, which isn't something you'd expect to be a flagship, but when we were very strapped for resources, we didn't want to use, well, obviously we could not use anything that used oil or diesel or gasoline or anything like that, So we were left to things that burnt coal, which are not very many ships, although there are a few, if maybe only a couple now, bulk carriers left, one of them being the museum ship that's currently in Cleveland, and that was one of the first things I sprung for because I knew it existed. But that was not something that you can just on a whim go, alright, we're going to take this and run with it, because it's a museum ship. We had to get that thing towed out of where it was, and this was an exceptional use of our reserves, and all the way past Buffalo and into the locks for this as well. Anyways, when we managed to get that ship steamable again, it became sort of our troop ship. It was able to carry vast amounts of, well, anything we needed it to, but in this case, people, from one point to another. And it being a bulk carrier and us having our hands on it, we managed to get it from Toronto all the way back through and to Sault Ste. Marie. It's the Hold on, let me get the name of it, because I don't want to sit here struggling for the name the whole time. William G. Mather. Okay, there we go. The steamship William G. Mather. It was one of those things where it is an absolute pain because it was a museum ship, and you basically have to turn the museum ship back into a regular ship by tearing all sorts of stuff out, and putting some stuff back that was, taken away. But that was our troop ship for this operation, and it also performed an exceptional maneuver during the course of the exercise, because it did not come up there with tugs, because that was deemed to be too great of a distance for the expenditure of those sorts of resources, oil-based resources, which is very much something that we had very little of. But anyways, it was an assault on the northern portion of Sault Ste. Marie. The bridge was successfully blocked, and so this is the Canadian side that we were concerned about because it had a steel mill. And like I was going to say, this was the first major mill that we got operational, the first major steel mill that we got operational, and it was to prove absolutely, I'm not sure what the word, absolutely invaluable. I could not come up with that word during the days and the years to come. So, once we had managed to get everybody up there, now, there were 2 ships and a train, and again, I was coordinating this at a great distance, and the train was led by Nickel Plate Road 765, directly out of the Toronto rail lands, and brought with it many of the supplies, while the ship brought with it many of the people because it had more room. And obviously the train got there first and hung around Echo Bay for a while. I believe it was upwards of a day, waiting for the Mather to arrive. And when that finally happened, the train moved into the city and met past the docks at the ore fields here. What is this? Oh, that's a beaching ground. And there they were able to offload most of the people. Well, the train went on past, and the people with minimal weaponry were tasked with getting off at the locks, basically, using what are they called? Jacob's ladders down the side of the ship, swung and anchored onto the side of the lock. And then the people themselves had to go across the locks, across everything, because there's a bunch of dams and whatnot, and move through the city. Now, that was really something. That was I can't believe they pulled this off, because it was done with minimal weaponry. It was done with minimal, like I was saying, they didn't have much on them. It was basically just the people and their basic supplies in order to get them to the main store of supplies, which was the train, which was parked out kind of in an area that looks like no man's land. And the train, of course, steaming through the town, they had to do a switchback maneuver to get through. They were attracting attention very, very quickly, and the people managed to get over there ahead of the zombies, mostly due to and these weren't just a bunch of civilians thrown at it. These were, okay, you're going to go on this mission, and we're going to, if not train you, we're going to make sure you're in the position to be able to survive. And so the William G. Mather pulled past the locks, which we left. There were a couple of people there. The Mather brought with it some portable generators, and those were lowered off the side of the ship very carefully, in order to start up, or in order to actuate the locks. And that was calculated ahead of time, and they managed to be just enough to get the locks open and closed. While the Mather was down there, they realized one of the locks was breached and was leaking water at a fairly significant rate. And once the Mather pulled past the locks, they noticed a ship that had been tied up, or at least appeared to be tied up along the shore, but was actually slowly scraping along towards the railroad bridge. And this is the northern span of the bridge, not the southern one. The southern one was raised, the northern one was lowered. I'm not sure if the northern one can be raised. At least we didn't do it, and we couldn't do it because we had the generators for the locks. We did not have the ability to get those patched into the bridge in time. So this ship was slowly gliding towards the bridge, and the Mather, the captain of the Mather in his valiance backed his ship down onto, down towards this ghost ship almost. And not with significant help managed to hook lines onto the other ship. Now that was, if that's not something in and of itself, this was something that had been cobbled together by the skeleton crew of the William G. Mather at the last moment, using ropes and cables and then chains. You throw the lighter thing across, and if you get somebody, you throw the lighter thing across, hook it, somebody basically crawls over on the line, pulls over something heavier, pulls over something heavier, pulls over something heavier, until you have something you can use to drag a ship with. And they did this repeatedly, because this thing was making it slow, inexorable, crawl towards that bridge. And this was something, again, told to me sort of second or third hand, but they managed to get that ship pulled off the bridge. And they ran it aground over near No Man's Land, which I don't know what this area actually is, but it's just, it looks like a coal field. I'm pretty sure that is what it is. Coal and ore. Now, the people that had made it to the train were then all stocked up and proceeded to sweep through the town, not without hiccups, but without anything really noteworthy going on. There were unfortunately a handful of fatalities, I believe. I said last time there were 15 people killed in the entire battle, but that versus several thousand zombies in Sault Ste. Marie, it was a very good and very, not even necessarily that hard fought of a victory, because the area is mostly suburban. You can predict, you can sweep a house fairly easily. It's not like an apartment building or anything like that. There were very few buildings that were over, 3 stories. So, they managed to clear the town, and they did the best they could, and stationed a contingent there, and fell back to the steel mill. And that happened over the course of, I think, probably the better part of a week. So, the thing about fighting that amount of Zax is you have to be very slow and methodical and plotting. And meanwhile, the 765 and her train dropped off as many supplies as they could, left, came back to Toronto, gathered more supplies and actual infrastructure-type supplies, when we knew that the city could in fact be ours, and brought them back, topped up on the ammunition, topped up on the food and drinking water, although the Great Lakes are right there, though you really want to drink right out of them. Water purification, more like. And from that, they were able to get enough captured that the Mather later brought in some very big heavy-duty stuff like generators and actual, not necessarily housing, almost prefab housing parts, because the city itself had been taken by bandits / raiders / whatever you want to call them, just a group of people that basically ransacked it, and then got driven out by zombies later. But the city was in no position to house any significant number of people, so the Mather did its best in bringing up sort of makeshift supplies for housing, at least to patch up, or at least to fill in the gap between then and when we had enough built-up residences that we could post people there. And of course, they were also supplies to start making the area defensible. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week. Trainman out.